Welcome to the brand new Vandy podcast. It is game week, week 1, Vanderbilt Temple. This is Hunter Wade. I'm your host of the brand new Vandy podcast, brought to you by VandyMania.com, Scott.com recruiting website. And I'm joined, as always, by Don Yates. Don, how we doing?
I'm doing all right, ready for some football. Finally, a couple more days and we'll be there.
It has been a long off season, and thankfully this week there's no crazy allegations coming out against our football team, except just some exciting news that we've finally named a new starting quarterback and maybe even be bringing out some new helmets for the first game.
Yeah, those look sharp.
You know, I saw where Coach Derek Mason tweeted out about a week and a half ago probably that, 8/28/14, there was going to be some big things coming, and he, tweeted a picture of a helmet. And I got to say, I called it. I called the matte black helmet.
Yeah, it looks sharp. Not as shiny, but hey, I think it looks pretty. It distinguishes the star more because of the flat black area, but the star black is shiny, so it stands out better. Absolutely.
I think that if you look at the star, a lot of people have said that it might be a little bit bigger. I don't think it's going to be any bigger than the old normal star. I think that was just part of the graphic that was on the helmet. And I know Coach Derek Mason loves those kind of things because while he was at Stanford, they went with the matte black helmet with the Garnet S.
Yeah, speaking of Stanford, the Scout.com publishers had a survey today. They put out, one of the questions in the survey was, where would you want your son to play college football? And like 78% said Stanford. I mean, they're talking about 100 publishers, and I think I think about, maybe it wasn't 78%, but it was considered by far the most was Stanford. I think Alabama was the second one, but it wasn't near as close to Stanford. They only listed the top two. It was Alabama and Stanford, number one.
Well, I think that like Stanford, Alabama has a head coach that puts emphasis on building young men and character, not only just a football team, but Stanford also has the heavy academic lean in their favors, that if you graduate from there, you've got a pretty good resume to boot.
Yeah, kind of like Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt and Stanford both have that, but that has to make you think, people think Vanderbilt's playing at such a, disadvantage, but we, at Vanderbilt have just as much quality education as Stanford. So that's a feather in Vanderbilt's cap. Any parents that have a knowledge of prestigious universities know that those two schools, Vanderbilt and Stanford, are both going to take care of their kids and get them in a good field where they can make a lot of money and take care of their families.
Absolutely, and that's why we hope that more and more students come to Vanderbilt. But I was actually listening to the radio today and heard a pretty good point by Clay Travis, everybody's favorite talking head in the Southeastern Conference, right? And
yeah.
He said that he was actually bragging on Coach Derek Mason, saying that, Coach Mason was able to be one of the only defensive coordinators in the Pac-12 and really the whole country that stopped Oregon's spread attack. And they really were talking about, getting down into it, how did he stop the Oregon spread attack while he was at Stanford? It wasn't like Stanford had people on their scout team that were as fast and as quick at every single position like Oregon was, so it had to be coaching. It wasn't that he was getting a good look all week because there was nobody on Stanford's team that could have given him a look like Oregon was going to have. But it was just good coaching and good fundamentals of how to tackle in the open field, which if you watch the SEC network, you've seen a lot of the coaching that he does in the Vanderbilt All Access piece.
Yeah, I tell you, I'm looking at some of the depth charts that have been floating around. I still haven't seen an official depth chart. I don't know what we're waiting for, the games in just a couple of days from now. But it's scary looking at some of the lineups that you see out there. 305-pound defensive ends out there going against you and 260-pound linebackers coming at you. That's the same thing they did at Stanford. I follow Army, too, and I remember looking at Stanford's depth chart and seeing a 267-pound linebacker. And we've got the same thing now at Vanderbilt, apparently. That's pretty exciting.
It is very exciting, and that's actually part of what I would say is that switch to the 3-4. So you've probably got a couple of defensive linemen that are moving on outside linebacker that are giving us that type of size to where you wouldn't usually see it.
Yeah. Guy that I thought would be for sure a defensive tackle, and he's sitting at defensive end, and it's pretty intimidating. I don't know how these guys are. You look at Temple, they're just a run-of-the-mill college size, and they're probably going to be pretty overwhelmed, I think, with these guys coming after them, these big guys. And also these linebackers, a lot of these linebackers are former defensive ends. They're going to be coming in there with basically five defensive linemen coming at them. Most of those guys are pretty mobile. So it can be, you're not talking about a big fat 305 pound guy. You're talking about guys that are lean and mean and fast.
Absolutely. I cannot wait to put the pain on someone else, and I know that the players can't wait to put the big hurt on some other players that are not in black and gold like they've been for the past couple of weeks of fall practice. But, Don, speaking of the depth charts at Vanderbilt, finally the offensive coordinator and our head coach come out with our starting quarterback, and you've called it since last season. I was wrong. My guess was Johnny McCrary, but it's Patton Robinette, the Batman.
Yeah.
Are you excited?
The way they were talking, I wasn't really sure whether I was going to get that one, but I figured, a guy that beats Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee, I know he didn't do it all by himself, but he did things to help beat those teams. I know a lot of people say, oh, yeah, he just he did a fake jump pass at Tennessee. Well, you still got to execute that just perfectly. He could have jumped up and fumbled the ball on the ground or something. You never know. And the guy can execute, and he's smart. I think he's got leadership capabilities. You just listen to him talk. He seems like someone that can, you'd look up to if you were a player. And you need a leader in there, someone who can get a grasp of people and get them doing the right things. And he's got experience. He's the most experienced quarterback Vanderbilt has. I mean, we've seen him before, guys that in practice tearing it up, and they go in the game and they can't, they throw back-to-back interceptions to start the game, or they just choke. This guy, he hasn't been perfect, but he has been pretty steady, though, and he hasn't hurt us. He's helped us a lot more than he's hurt us. So I think putting that experience in there, it bodes well for the team to have him back. There's always an option if he gets in there and he just can't throw it in the ocean and he's messing up left and right, and give one of those other guys a shot. That doesn't mean just because he's been made the starter that he's the only guy that's going to play quarterback all season. Bobby Johnson's no longer the coach at Vanderbilt, and that's what he used to do. He used to kill people because he would never, he'd change out other players in a heartbeat, change out the starter or pull him out of the game if he's having a bad game, but he'd leave the quarterback in there struggling the whole game and not give anyone else a chance. I don't think these coaches are like that. They're going to put the guy in there that gives them the best chance to win.
More than happy to see that Patton Robinette was named the starter because, like you said, he's a leader. He's a smart guy. He does an outstanding job of winning in all scenarios. I mean, when he was in high school, he won as a redshirt freshman. Collegiate quarterback, comes in, thrown into the fire after a couple of quarterbacks were injured, wins again, and now beats out one of the highest-rated quarterback prospects that we've ever had in Johnny McCrary, and then also a redshirt junior, I believe, that transferred in, Stephen Rivers, and wins the quarterback competition. So,
yeah,
looking for big things. One of the hot topics right now on the VandyMania.com message boards. Obviously, if you want to follow us online, it's VandyMania.com. Go check out the football forum. And also, if you want to follow us on Twitter, it's VandyMania.com. That's on Twitter, and then the podcast is VUMania Podcast. But one of the hot topics was presented by Jumbo Door just recently here this week, and the question was, should Vandy have brought in Stephen Rivers to be a quarterback, and why not? And, Don, I wanted to get your take on that. I don't know if you've posted on it or not, and I'll kind of follow up with my opinion.
I think it was a good idea. I know there's a lot of quarterbacks on the roster, but we didn't have many guys with that much experience. This guy was a heavily recruited quarterback. He was good enough that a very successful program, LSU, went after him. He didn't make get the starting position, but that doesn't mean he's a bad quarterback. And it doesn't mean because he didn't win the starting position in this preseason drill we just had, that doesn't mean he's going to not get to play. He could end up playing more than Robinette or McCurry this season. So I think it's good. The quarterback, I think, is the most important position on the team. You got to have a quarterback that's decent, and you're not going to have a chance. If he can't execute those plays, he can't lead those players, do what he has to do and prepare for the game. You're hurting if your quarterback sinks. Not saying any of the quarterbacks stunk, but you need to make sure you have a guy in there that can do it. We saw James Franklin was good at making sure he had good quarterbacks. He had Jordan Rodgers when he came in there, but then he went out after Austin Carter Samuels that passed for like 3,500 yards at Wyoming. He brought in a proven veteran FBS quarterback, and I think it makes sense to get that guy. If you have to burn up another scholarship to make sure that you have a good quarterback, I think it makes sense to do it. You now at least have two quarterbacks that have SEC experience playing. McCrary, he's been there a year. He's got a great future ahead of him, but he hasn't seen the field yet. But with Rivers, you got another guy that's at least played in a couple games, and he's been coached by, I guess, outstanding coaches at LSU. So it just gives the team more insurance that they'll have that leadership and that ability there for the quarterback position.
Yeah, I think that you have to bring in a guy like Steven Rivers if he wants to come to Vanderbilt. I mean, for one, he was a highly rated, quarterback coming out of school, and he was behind Zach Mettenberger down there, and then he's actually has already graduated from LSU, I believe, so he's doing a different, study program up here at Vanderbilt. But, regardless of where Johnny McCrary is and, had he been the number 2 or had he been the number 1, you got to bring in Steven Rivers. And this brings up the question of, would Johnny McCrary transfer now that Steven Rivers is on campus and that we've got great quarterbacks and we're going to continue to bring quarterbacks in? And I think that the answer to that is no. He shouldn't transfer, and I don't think that he will. You look down at Georgia right now, they just had the all-time leading, passer in Georgia history, and Aaron Murray play for 4 years, and they have a fifth-year senior now at quarterback that's, basically been waiting his time the entire, career, his entire career to be the starter. Why would Johnny McCrary not feel like he could do that? He's just a redshirt freshman. By the time these other guys graduate, he could be a junior or senior starting quarterback, and all you need is one good year to get drafted. I mean, look at Cameron Newton. Yeah,
we've seen a lot of players with 4 stars by their name come in and hardly ever see the field, or at least, there's a couple of them that we've had coming. One was that Thorogood guy that he was a quarterback.
Yeah, LaFonte Thorogood.
Yeah, he was a 4-star player, and he ended up transferring. I'm not sure what he's doing now. But it's because you're going to Vanderbilt, you think your God's gift I'm not saying this is McCrary, but I think you're God's gift to the world because you're a 4-star player, but it still doesn't mean you're going to be an instant impact starter. We see Leafowl, I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, the defensive lineman is the heaviest recruited player ever. From what I'm hearing, he's not going to start. He might play some, but he isn't going to be a starter. Mm-hmm. But I think McCrary is doing the right thing if he stays at Vanderbilt because he still has a lot of years. He's got four more years of eligibility ahead of him, including this season. So he's going to have a chance to get in there and play, and he could play a variety of positions. If he gets bored just being a backup quarterback, if it continues, he can move over and do running back or wide receiver. I know he's not thinking of doing that now, but down the road he'll have that option if he wants to. But who knows? He might transfer. A lot of players just want to play, and he can't blame them. They want to stand on the sidelines watching someone play and just do all that practice and hard work. If you think you can go somewhere else and have a chance to play, then a lot of players will do it.
Yeah, are you familiar with the social media app Instagram, Don?
Yes, I am.
So Johnny McCrary, the morning of the announcement, he tweets out posts on Instagram that he went from redshirt freshman quarterback to third-string quarterback. A lot of people read into that as that he was thinking of transferring, and you have all these guys that come in with some sense of entitlement now due to Instagram and fans having direct access to these young guys. But if you look at it, what makes him any different? Transferring to one of these bigger schools where he says, players, have more of a, they have more of a role at those schools. The fans love him. They treat him well to where here he doesn't get noticed as much. But when he goes there, he's just going to be battling other 4-star and 5-star quarterbacks at any other school. Do you think that a lack of maturity, such as what he might have displayed that morning, is one of the reasons he isn't starting?
I don't know. I really haven't talked to McCrary that much, so I can't be a judge. But the times I've heard him speak, he sounded like he's got a good level head on the shoulder. I mean, I don't know that that was as bad as some players. He's probably upset that he said he was a third-string quarterback. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. He didn't curse the coaches or say that he's through with Vanderbilt or anything like that. He just told him that he was a third-string quarterback on his Instagram service.
Maybe he looks at that as a improvement. He went from a red shirt to being all the way to the third string. Maybe I'm reading too much into it.